Hey guys, in this episode, me and Caitlin sit down and talk about Memories by Absorb, which is our personal side of the company where we do wedding films, wedding photography, and we talk about why we decided no longer to do wedding films or wedding photography and why we left the wedding industry. So, Memories is our it's more than just weddings, but what do we call it?
It's our personal services.
Personal services, side of the business, and I'd say that probably started first.
It did.
The work,
yeah.
that type of work started first, and I think this starts first for most people in this industry that we're in. So, starting off, if you listen to our last episode, I mentioned that I never done a wedding before. We're going to be talking mainly about weddings this episode, and why we don't do them no more. But one of my friends knew I made videos. I made videos for fun. I was doing client work then. That's when we just started into it. We were just starting to do client work, our corporate side, and I never done a wedding before. And my friend said he kept asking me to do the wedding. I kept saying no because I'd never done one. Didn't want to do it. Had me do it. He paid me, and I was like telling him not to pay me because it doesn't turn out, but he paid me, and I thought that was awesome, and that I could do more weddings for money. It's another thing I could do in video. So we kept doing videos, and then you came in on the photo side of it. We were doing photos and video, and then we started offering photo and video bundles, which was a huge competitive edge that we had because we worked together already, and there was never a worry as a one-stop shop. And that aspect of it. How did we start getting business? First, I think it was literally word of mouth.
It was, yeah. Well, it started with your friend, Jordan.
Yeah.
It was the first wedding. And then from there, actually our second wedding was like an old friend from high school for me. Yeah. So really the first few weddings that we did was all word of mouth. And really it was about a year and a half before we got our first wedding that was like, we didn't know anyone at all.
Yeah.
So we did probably 5 or 6 weddings of just friends, extended friends, people that we knew mutually before we did any that were just random people.
Yeah, it was that for a while because you realize your friends of friends are, and you had said too that, and I think this was a huge part of it, our age, our demographic, a lot of our friends and people we knew around us, people we went to school with, everybody's getting married. And so we just happened to start our business at that good time too with that. But we did run some ads on Facebook, Instagram.
We always did a New Year's and a Valentine's sale too.
That always did super well with doing that. And then I think I just posted some stuff on my personal Facebook too. For a while, that's all I was doing video wise, was just weddings. So I don't know. You would go right into the negative stuff. Because I don't know.
No,
what else
I think let's talk about the actual business side of it first. So
okay,
kind of how we worked and what sort of processes we formed. Let's save the crazy stories for the end.
just thinking of it, sometimes I get frustrated.
Yeah,
but we'll go ahead.
Yeah. So the first couple of weddings that we did, we didn't have contracts, we didn't have schedules, we didn't know what we were doing at all. It was just
the one thing you want to make sure you have contracts for, really.
Yeah, we figured that out real fast. But yeah, so the first couple that we did, we didn't have contracts for. It was literally just doing something for a friend. I'm pretty sure, we made maybe $200 on both, like our first 2 weddings. Maybe.
Well, the first one?
Yeah.
I know I made 400.
Oh, you made 400. Yeah. Okay. I'm pretty sure the first one that we did only photo, we made like $200.
Because I expected nothing, and I was so happy. It was amazing to get that.
Yeah. And then from there, I mean, after we did our first couple of weddings was when we started getting more people that started reaching out because they saw the work that we were doing. We saw, mutual friends and other people tagging us and stuff and thanking us and all of that. And so that point was when we really started doing research on like what are other wedding photographers and videographers doing and how are they working.
We realized that we were significantly undercharging what we were doing.
Yeah. We knew that we were undercharging, but we didn't have the experience either. So we kind of
but then it was just kind of like, it was I was amazed people were doing this full time.
Yeah.
They're making that kind of money.
So realistically speaking, we did weddings for 5 years at that point. From our first, it was kind of, the first couple of years were really slow. But in the amount of time from our first wedding, you said that you made like $400 off of that. By the time that we ended, our starting prices, like our lowest package started at $6,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was only photos.
Which is average for high-end, well, not even high-end.
Not even high-end.
No, that's just average. It gets up there, especially when you're talking video too, these bundles, which when you looked at what we were giving you, it was it really was a steal.
It was
saving so much.
But the thing is, like, the demographic that we attracted in this area in central Indiana, people weren't able to pay that much all the time. But they expected it. Like, they saw all their other friends and everybody else that were all getting these like high-end packages and all these different things, different amenities and whatever. And so that's what everyone wanted their weddings to look like, that and to operate like that. But a lot of the demographic that we could attract couldn't afford that. I
do think the business can have to do with, we traveled a lot too. We did some out of state, but I do think it does rely heavily on your area.
Yeah.
You could get to a point eventually where you're traveling all the time, which that was not our goal. We didn't want to, we
had played with the idea of like, maybe before we decided to end weddings, we had talked about only doing elopements, which most people travel for that.
Yeah. So. Which I think would have been awesome.
It would have been, but
it's just it's not what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
Not full time. We did a couple elopements though.
Yeah, we did a couple.
Which I definitely enjoyed the elopements more than.
Oh, they're way easier.
Way better than anything else. But I do want to go back to the pricing though. When we decided to up our prices, I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
We more than doubled them.
Almost tripled our prices.
Yeah. And then we doubled our clientele.
Yeah.
Doing that. And that's when it was eye-opening, because I think that was the first example of people really associate, no matter what the product is, it could be, it could be this phone, this phone is $10. It could still have a Google Pixel 6 Pro. And if it's $10, you're going to think it's crap. But if it's $700-800, you associate that it's got some quality to it, or you would hope.
Yeah.
So I think that was coming into play with people. They've seen our cheap prices, but our quality was not cheap. We really got up there.
But what we weren't advertising at first was the amount of work that went into the back end of it. So people were seeing our portfolio and they were really impressed with the type of work that we were doing, but we were way undercharging. But when we said that we, multiplied the actual like base cost of our packages, and we doubled or tripled the price of them, our service didn't change, but we advertised it differently. So what we've always done for weddings, we've always met with the couple multiple times before the wedding day. If they had a coordinator or someone that was planning it for them, they shared a timeline with us first. And then after the first couple of weddings that we did, we started making our own timelines, because we really started figuring out what we needed to have accommodated during that time.
There's a balance there that is not seen of, we got to work around the wedding day, but there's also, if you want us to do this, you got to kind of work around us at the same time. There's got to be cooperative planning there, and it's not just and that's what we were dealing with a lot, is people's, all right, just be there and be able to make what you made. What I've seen in your portfolio, just do that. And it's like, no, it's not just do that. There's a process to being able to do that.
Exactly. And the other thing too is our delivery. So when we first started, we had this idea. We hadn't seen anyone else doing it. We had this idea of like, let's have these custom cool little boxes that are custom to each one of our couples that we work with. And they'll have this cool like glass flash drive, and we'll write them a handwritten letter. And then whenever we were doing photos, we would give them like a printed photo gallery in this, and we had like branded gift bags and this really like fancy tissue paper, and we really took a lot of time into the actual delivery.
The bags are branded,
and like we were so proud of that. And then
I love that.
Well, that worked for a couple of years, and then it got really competitive, and other people started doing that, and they made their delivery more than their actual services. So people were charging $10,000 to go do a photo, like wedding photos. And their delivery was like, they would have, this this huge like custom gift box essentially that had like the client's like name engraved on it, and they had like these huge posters printed out for like they basically everyone did something super unique, but we were really on the cutting edge of that. We were doing something really different at first, and then when that started getting really popular on social media and influencers started posting their weddings and other people were seeing the type of delivery that all of these, you know, like really high-end wedding photographers and videographers were delivering, that's what everyone expected everywhere, all the time. So something that was really premium to us that, you know, we were really excited to start offering early on, eventually became like...
became his whole department.
Yeah, but eventually that became subpar compared to what everyone else was doing. When we, like, quite frankly, probably $200 or so of like your total wedding package went into us just giving that back to you in gifts. Is basically what it was.
Which we fixed that all in too. Like,
we did, yeah.
Like a lot of the time couples didn't care about it till they got it. They didn't realize how cool it was till they had it.
Yeah.
And we still get people talking about how they do love their little box and the flash drive, how cool that was.
Because I mean, it's a piece that we've seen, like we've visited with some of our clients after the fact, like years later too, and they have them like sitting on their mantle, and you know, it's cool to see like that's something that we did. Like those are memories that we captured. Yeah, I like.
I mean, it's for the video side, photos you can print them out, but the idea for me was that you're not always gonna be playing the video. It's like a once a year thing. So it's like give something physical and kind of look at it and think about the video. Yeah. Maybe.
And I mean, even on the video delivery too, you were always doing a lot more than what other wedding filmmakers were doing. Like you would offer multiple versions of their videos too. And you would optimize it for social media, and you know, going way above
I'm obsessed with quality, and that's where I feel like I noticed I really wasn't fitting in this wedding world where for any filmmaker out there, anybody shooting video, I shot everything log. I would do raw. I used manual lenses on everything because I was built for cinema setups, not so much run and gun documentary stuff. And I kept pursuing that and investing more on the cine side, and the weddings were getting harder for me. Quality was getting better, but it was getting harder because I was still doing the one-man band stuff. But yeah, my export settings, I would give them multiple versions, whether it's going to Facebook, Instagram. I also would give like a cinescoped widescreen if they want to put it on a big TV or projector. Like I was always giving them all that stuff because I always thought of that. But
yeah. And on the photo end, I didn't go to that extent, but you know, I would deliver both color and black and white of every single photo. A lot of photographers don't do that. And we didn't have a cap on the images that we would deliver. So a lot of photographers would either, one, watermark all of their photos at delivery, or two, you would have a cap of how many photos you could have, or three, they would not, basically you would pay for them to come to your wedding and photograph it, and then you had to pay to download your images. And a lot of times even with a watermark for that.
Yes.
So those were all things that we made sure like we were not ever going to do that. So we delivered everything without watermarks, and we gave 2 versions of every photo. And so usually when we were delivering weddings, people had 800 to thousands of photos that we were handing off. And people don't understand that is so much time in editing too, like hours and hours and hours.
Oh, that's something I will mention too with the wedding films. Is I never just gave highlights too. I do full days, full lengths, meaning every part of the wedding was filmed in its entirety, which looking back now, I don't know if it was necessary. People actually appreciated that or not.
I think some did, definitely.
I would film everything. Yeah. They would be hour long or so little mini, I don't even call them mini docs, they're little feature docs of their wedding day. And that it would take me probably 40 hours or so per wedding. Like to do a full length, and then I also condense it down into highlight. There's a lot. And I always thought about dropping the full length, but then it was just the way I worked, and it made it difficult for me to like try to think a different way.
Yeah. And then eventually you started offering just ceremonies.
Yeah.
Too. And so that became really popular. If people were hiring us to photograph it, and then you to film the ceremony. Yeah. And then it became popular for people to say, well, we want the ceremony film and a highlight film, but we don't want a full length. And so then you'd be filming the same amount and editing pretty much the same amount.
Pretty much, because I got to go through all the footage. Yeah. So I was already filming it all the same way. Cause they probably could have worked smarter, but it's just, I don't know. It's just how I worked on I think it's because I think of like I thought of it as a documentary film. I need to capture everything, but then I forget I'm not handing it off to a bunch of editors to edit sequences.
Yeah.
I'm handing it off to me to edit all of these sequences, and that was a lot.
Well, your idea of filming everything too goes into planning the wedding day. So we would have, oh my gosh, this happens so many times. We'll add this into the horror stories, but people would expect us to be everywhere all the time and capture every single thing. And if something wasn't in their gallery or wasn't in their film or something, we never really got this on. We never really had any people complain about this on film, but photos we did of if we didn't capture something, they would notice it right away and ask us, where is this? So that's when we started really implementing our plan of like, we gave them a list of exactly what we are capturing ahead of time, and they had to sign it and approve it and provide it back to us the day before, or not the day before, we'd made it like 30 days before the wedding. And they understood, you know, timelines change. We had all this contingency stuff in our contracts of like, the days are chaotic, the timeline might change. Like there's so many variables that go into if we can be at this place at this time to capture this one moment.
And I do think people are more particular about their photos.
Yeah.
Because they can think of, you can think of one photo they want. They can't, in their head, they want a wedding film, but they can't play that film in their head.
Yeah.
They can think of an image in their head real quickly.
Yeah.
So I think with the film, and it's true with any film, any wedding, you can't really imagine what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
You don't know what's being captured the whole day. So I think people are way more pickier with photo.
Yeah. And with photo too, we would have people that would say like they wanted a certain style of photo, and it's like, well, we have our own style. So like how do you politely tell someone, well, if you want that style, then go hire a photographer that does that style?
Yeah, that's the thing too. No, that's not even skill based.
No.
That's like, I don't know, going to Ford and asking them to sell you a Ford Corvette.
Yep.
You know, like it's like a car they don't make that.
Yeah.
You know? So like, no, go to, you know, Chevy if you want that.
Yeah.
And
they always want it cheaper than the people that charge.
Well,
the actual,
that would be so frustrating too when they would send us something from someone that we know was charging more than us and ask if we can make our stuff look like theirs.
Yeah.
And it's not even quality, it's style. And this is where it gets competitive in the arts, where skill can only take you so far, and then trendy styles will sometimes take you further because whatever's trending people want.
And so, but then it also came down to, we had so many weddings back to back so often that we had to have a style that matched the time of year. So what we started doing was we had a like spring summer style for photos on the photo end. We had a spring summer style.
Well, I did that with video too.
Yeah.
I color grade differently.
But with photo, I kind of had to like show the clients like, this is what you're expecting. Like, I don't understand. Like film, people were so much more lenient on wedding films than they were wedding photos. Like I just don't.
I don't know why. Probably because I think films are so new, there's not a lot to compare it to yet.
Yeah, and I think people just don't realize what kind of control you do have. You know, I think people think like, oh, can't you just Photoshop that?
Yeah.
And they don't think that for films.
No, they probably don't think that there's anything like masking available, or they probably don't understand color grading. They probably think that it looks like that because of the camera I used. And they probably never ask. They probably don't. They would never ask me to change any colors or say anything about skin tones or anything.
Yeah,
because they didn't.
Plus, there's also a different essence with film. You see the emotion more than you do in photo. Not that you can't capture emotion in photo, but you're able to see it. So I think there's this just bias towards wedding films of like, people realize that when they watch a wedding film, they are literally reliving that memory in that moment. So it's more meaningful to them to have a wedding film than it is the photos. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I apologize if you can hear our dog licking himself. Kratos. I don't want to hear that. No one wants to hear that.
He looks at us like, what?
I know.
What's wrong?
One thing, too, I want to say about style is people don't understand what all goes into that.
Yeah.
It is not just a edit style or a preset or a LUT that you just drop on. A lot of the wardrobe, the lighting in the room, if you don't know, I mean, you don't have any control over that usually. No. I mean, you made your flash on you. I bring one light for the dance floor. I mean, I'm not going to, it's not.
You're not going to stage this whole thing. We don't have time for that.
No, it's run and gun.
Yeah.
And people, they'll send photos of what they want, and it's like a totally different type of dress, different time of year.
Yeah.
It's not even the same country. It's like, it'd be like Iceland or the Grand Canyon, and they got like a barn wedding.
Yeah.
And it's like, well.
Oh, man, that's the thing, too. Barns are so overdone in Indiana. There's no, I mean, literally, we were looking it up. There's 2 or 3 venues in all of Indiana that are not barns. Everyone does barn weddings.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, not everyone wants a barn wedding styled shoot. Like, they don't want to. We've literally had people ask us not to show off the barn in their wedding photos. It's like, you chose this venue.
How about we just meet on a green screen and do it all later?
But I think what I started to say before we kind of got sidetracked there is with the styles, what we started doing was I had this kind of, not a preset, but this sort of style that we would achieve for like spring, summer type photos that was pretty well consistent. I mean, like you mentioned, it depends on wardrobe and lighting and all these other factors that go into the weather, you know, all these other factors that go into play. But I had this kind of general, like, here's what very green environments look like when we deliver weddings. And then I had this fall kind of going into winter, because we did do a couple of weddings in the winter, but not very often. And then I had this fall package. And me personally, I preferred the fall weddings. But we did have couples from the summer that after the fact wanted fall type photos. Yeah. And it's like, this is what we showed all of this to you beforehand. Like, this is what you agreed on, you know? Yeah, it's a lot.
Well, then you also got, in the summer, you're going to have warmer sun.
Yeah.
And then like cloudy. I mean, all that has to go with your camera settings on the day to get proper skin tones, can also change the look of everything else. Yeah. But I think set design, the decor, the setting has a lot to do with the vibe of the image you're capturing. It does so much more than I think. Well, I wish we had an example of 2 photos. I'm sure you can find this online. 2 photos taken with the same exact LUT preset, edited the same way. Same color tones and everything, but one is like on a rusty truck in front of a barn, and then one is like in the city on the streets, and it's like this city vibe during, you know, the truck one can be in the fall, the city can be during the summer, and they will have totally different feelings. You will feel different, you'll perceive them different, not only because there's just different colors there, but there's different contrast ratios, there's different balances of contrast of color, shadows, light. There's all of that plays in. And that's what cracks me with someone sends one photo and they don't even know exactly. Well, I mean, they don't have an eye for it when they say that I like this photo, but then like, tell me what it is you like about it. You like her dress? You like the Grand Canyon behind them? Because we can't bring the Grand Canyon with us.
So something else that we started doing too was I would ask people to make Pinterest boards to show us what kinds of photos they wanted.
And that was helpful.
Yeah, and so I would have them specify, like, okay, in this photo, do you like the style? Do you like the visual style of this, or do you like the pose? Like, so those are 2 very different things.
Sorry, our dog was licking his paws again. They must taste pretty good today. All right, you were saying?
So what we started doing was we had people deliver Pinterest boards. So they would put together a Pinterest board of all this wedding inspiration that they were wanting, you know, and if there were sometimes that people would be too widely varied in what they would have on their Pinterest board. So I would ask them to find weddings that, you know, use the same colors as them or the same style or something, you know. And so really we use that as a point of reference for a lot of the poses that they wanted. They were able to see things that they liked on Pinterest that they wanted us to incorporate into their wedding, but also the visual style too. But there were times that we had people here in Indiana that had, you know, a barn wedding or, you know, something to that extent. And their entire Pinterest board was full of people in these meadows and mountains and, like you said, the Grand Canyon or beach weddings. And so we don't have any of that here. So like, what is it about this that you like? And it's always the environment. They always say that.
It is, and I think that is way more important. Anyway, I think you should look at where you're wanting your wedding photos taken or video filmed before hiring somebody, because that's going to have a lot to do with how it's going to look. If your wedding looks bad, it's going to look bad on camera. If your wedding looks good, it's going to look good on camera. Yeah. And then a good photographer will come enhance that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's enhancing. So, well, I don't know. There's also different kinds of photographers and filmmakers, because their weddings are always run and gun. They always will be. No matter how stylized or staged or anything that you want to do, you are always just rolling with whatever happens that day. And so, so you know, you can have a photographer or filmmaker that does stage more things during the wedding day. So they will have kind of more control, but you are going to be sacrificing more on your wedding day for that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so there's really just this balance of like people that are hiring wedding photographers or videographers, filmmakers, you know, whatever it may be, need to understand what the sacrifices are to get the types of shots that you want to get. But at the same time, it's on the photographer or the filmmaker to specify that too.
Yeah. Yeah. There was something I always wanted to do. I've always seen, I never did this because it's always that balance. People they didn't want you to be too intrusive and take away from the day and make it a whole on the video side, like a whole film production. But I've seen people literally bring lights for each scene, and they will tell them, like, this is where we're going to stand. This is the best light. And they will have all their lights set up before speeches are going to be done here. You stand here. And I had seen videos of wedding videographers, wedding filmmakers, literally go up and like grab someone's shoulders, reposition them, like during their speech, like, nope, stand here. You need to move your shoulders, like, and stop them. And as if it's like a scene they're yelling cut at and going up. And there's a balance there of like how much stuff to bring to set up and what's in the way. And then you also got DJs too, or
and guests.
Yeah, they're there. Oh my gosh. Guests.
You just have flashbacks to all the times that people moved your tripods.
Yes, guests suck. Everyone who touched my tripod, you suck. Who does that? That made me so freaking mad.
And multiple times. It wasn't once.
No.
And it's at different weddings too. Why is that a thing?
And it would make me so mad when it's framed. I would have it out of the way too.
Yep.
I would have it out of the way.
It's not like we never staged any of our stuff in the way ever. We weren't blocking tables. We were always behind people. Always. I had cameras everywhere, but that was because I knew some were going to block, some people were going to walk in front, want to make sure we had coverage. And if we ever worked with another photographer and we were just doing video, for some reason we never did it the other way. Yeah.
And I think because not everyone was doing video yet. Video was fairly new. I always made sure I had coverage to cut around, but then what? Why can't you? I don't know. I don't know. They thought they were helping because they're standing there.
I don't think so.
No,
I don't.
You're just an inconsiderate, rude idiot.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't say idiot.
No.
Inconsiderate and rude, yeah.
There's a lot of things I'm not going to say. I'm going to say they're an idiot at least
ignorant.
Here.
I would say
ignorant idiot.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. That'd be so mad. I remember one time, I don't know who it is. Don't know who it was. I could move my tripod. You remember this?
Yeah.
And I was having this battle with this tripod. I kept framing up and I kept trying to move it because I didn't know what the problem was. And every time I came back to it, it was like turn the other way and moved somewhere else. Someone was picking it up and moving it.
And it was not in a walkway. It wasn't where people were eating. It was literally, it was a fenced in area and you are outside of the fence pointing across.
I really think that was someone thought it was funny, which
maybe
it's inconsiderate thinking there's a business here and there's money. If I wouldn't have had, luckily I have other shots, but still, if I didn't see that, I wouldn't have had nothing on that camera.
At that point, the guests are ruining this film, this product for their family or friend, whoever it is that they're watching.
Yeah, guests, they suck.
Yeah.
They all suck. Not all of them.
No, not all. Some of them are good. Yeah.
Some of them are good. Yeah.
But for the most part.
I don't even know what I was saying. It just made me, when you said guests, I was like, I just have.
You were talking about staging, repositioning people.
Oh, that's it, I guess. Well, imagine I had a bunch of lights too, and I get frustrated because people point lights. Well, that's another thing too, working with lights and DJs. We would always bring just one light for the dance floor. And that actually is a really good tip to anyone who's doing this is just we would bring one hard, warm light.
Yeah. Spotlight.
Yeah, and we could silhouette them.
And it did not interfere with DJ lights. Like DJs could still, they would always.
They'd be skeptical, which.
We were asked to turn it off a lot.
Yeah.
But when you actually looked at it, like we understand, like we're not running the show, So usually what we would do is we would ask if we could have the light on during like the formal dances, So we'd ask if we could have the light on there and for like 30 minutes at the beginning of when people were like, party dancing.
We always talked to them before.
Yeah.
We always talked to them, made sure it was okay, let them know what we were going to do. No one ever just flat out said no. Did they?
We did. We ended up arguing against it, and we did it anyway because we had to have it. You had to have it for video at least.
Well, especially
for photo, we could go without it.
Early on, cameras aren't at all what they are now in low light.
Yeah.
And I remember that was my biggest issue was reception. I couldn't film.
Yeah.
It was just so.
We had, I think, two different DJs that would just turn the light off. And like we'd be in the middle.
I couldn't imagine going up and unplugging the DJ board or spinning their.
No. Oh my gosh, yeah. And like you said, we talked about this before. Like man, I'm like getting worked up now.
I am too. So let's go into the negative right now while we're fired up.
All right. Negative. I have my list here. No.
Here we're getting into why we stopped. And I'm gonna let you go. You go.
Okay. I have a lot here.
I'm gonna call people more names.
So let's start with payment issues first. So just because that's the biggest reason that we had to stop. So we knew that our pricing was expensive. Well, it was average, but we knew it was.
We knew the product we were selling was expensive.
Yeah, but we knew it was a big investment. You know, people were willing to pay it though. So, you know the investment that you're getting into ahead of time. So understand that and be prepared for it.
Well, yeah.
And so, what we would do is we would require money down, and for a long time we only did $100, and then we ended up upping it to a percentage towards the end. We only did that on a couple
I think
weddings.
we did half. I thought we did half up front.
We did do that for when our pricing was really cheap. We did half up front.
Was it half 60 days before or so?
So what we did, our pricing, I managed this part of the business for all of our weddings. So we required $100 booking deposit up front. So like as soon as they sign the contract, they submit $100. That was non-refundable no matter what. Like even if you cancel your wedding, anything.
Nothing. Which you want to explain why we did that?
Because we had people that like we were putting these dates in our calendar and planning for it, and then for one, some of them would just ghost us, and two, then others we would find out that like, oh, they actually hired other people, or we were holding these dates for no reason. Like that happened a lot. So we did that early on. That was like our second or third wedding.
And you'd be surprised when people get married around the same time.
Yeah. And so there were times that we did have people that were reaching out for dates that we already had marked in the calendar, and we had to tell them no. And then we find out like, oh, well, these people either aren't getting married or they moved or
they broke up or something.
Yeah.
That's another tip with the pricing is I noticed our demographic changed to more serious people.
Yeah.
Our demographic changed when we were charging cheap. People were so flaky on their relationships themselves, or they were just not that anything's wrong with getting married so soon. It does work. We've seen it, but some people it'd be up till like right before, and then we get a message saying they're no longer getting married or something. Yeah, which is awful to hear, but also affects our business.
Yeah. So what our pricing, we required $100 booking deposit that was non-refundable no matter what. That did come out of the package price though. So it wasn't an additional fee. That was subtracted from their total invoice. And then we required half of the remaining invoice at 60 days before the wedding. And that we had dates, we had reminders, we allowed people to make payments up until then if they needed to. We were really flexible with that.
That was another thing we did too.
Everything we did was all written though. Like we had contracts for everyone agreed to every single thing that they did. And then we did 60 days before the wedding because originally we were doing 30 days before the wedding, and that we found that 30 days was when people started to get like real kind of brain foggy in their wedding planning. So we did 60 days to get ahead of that. So they just had it done out of the way before the wedding. And then our delivery was 60 days after the wedding. So we required the remaining balance on the invoice 60 days after the wedding. And again, all this was contracted and agreed, and we would send reminders and all of that. But actually right before this episode, we went through all of our old logs, and we found that 1/4, literally 25% of the weddings that we ever did had payment issues.
Yeah.
Meaning that they just didn't pay, or we offered some kind of favor and they paid, 2 or 3 years later, or there was some kind of discrepancy.
We always got
there.
Paid though in the end. I don't think
in the end,
no one got away.
A couple of them were 2 or 3 years later. Yeah. But we did always end up getting paid in the end.
Yeah.
We were a lot more lenient than most people.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too.
Because we would hold on to our products the entire time. Even if someone paid 3 years later, like.
Well, that's what the other half was. The other half the product would not be delivered until they paid the other half. So it was kind of the idea was they're already half invested. Well, I mean, you're up, you're out a couple $1,000s when you want to go ahead and pay and you have nothing to show for. Why wouldn't you pay the other half? But there's some people that just get in over their head with money, and that's something you run into in that business too.
Yeah.
And on our corporate side, we almost never ran into payment issues at all, ever on that.
No,
because it's a more professional industry.
Yeah.
With weddings, you're dealing with everyday people.
Yeah.
It's
which is fine. Like that's good for some people. But customer service is not a fun business to be in.
And I don't know, maybe some other people have a better screening process on their wedding side of the business to know the type of people. I don't know what that looks like. I'd be curious actually to know if there's someone who's always has never had a bad client in the wedding industry.
That'd be interesting.
Not saying we had bad clients. It's just people. There's more life variables within that industry itself. You're dealing with a different type of work. And there's all kinds of different things that could be thrown at you curveball wise, just out of nowhere.
Yeah. So before we get into our more serious complaints in the wedding industry, I'll say too, we did a lot. We did a lot of weddings in the few years that we actually did them. And the majority of them were good. Like we had no complaints. The majority of them were good. Yes. Like our clients were awesome. Like we thoroughly enjoyed them. The actual weddings themselves were good. We were happy with the products that we delivered. Like no complaints. That was like the vast majority. But the ones that went bad were so bad.
They're so bad it's not. Yeah.
It wasn't even worth considering us staying in the industry.
No, not at all. And when we work the wedding, it's always the day of. We're always pretty happy. Like the day of is usually stressful.
Like we usually go into it like, man, I don't want to do another wedding. Yeah. Like I don't feel like being on my feet all day and like carrying all these giant cameras around.
I feel like it's like you kind of ramp up to it, and then I feel like we're just hyping ourselves up. But then it's usually kind of fun.
It is, yeah.
And then as the day drags on, that's when it starts really just tapering
especially off. At the end of the night, like when it finally gets to that like party dancing, like all the big events are done, then it's like, it's time to leave yet, like, okay, when can we get out of here?
Like a long day. And that's another thing too, is these are 10 plus hour days. When we first started, we were doing 14, 15 hour days. So we get there so early.
Well, because I mean, your first wedding that you ever did was your first wedding you ever attended, right?
Yes. I didn't know how a wedding worked or how a typical ceremony went.
Yeah. So like our first few clients, like we would go to the rehearsals the day before to see where everything was set up, how it was working, like where we could put our stuff, like, we were really trying to plan ahead. And then once we kind of got into a groove and we started understanding like, okay, we can kind of wing this to an extent, like not wing it. Cause like, we were still planning enough to where we knew what to expect.
Yeah. We've been doing so many for so long that it eventually became cookie cutter.
Yeah.
And that was another thing where it just wasn't as fulfilling and satisfying. It was the same thing over and over. We had blueprints for everything. We knew how to, and which was awesome for the couple, because we ran into an issue. We already ran into it before.
Oh,
we knew to handle it. We knew how to adapt. I mean, that's what you got to do in that field. Yeah. You have to be ready to adapt and problem solve.
But like it got to the point where like I was doing the job of a wedding coordinator.
You always were the wedding coordinator.
I don't understand. Even the wedding coordinators at these weddings were not coordinators.
What does a wedding coordinator do?
I don't know, because I was the one that delivered timelines to all the other vendors. I don't understand.
And most of the coordinators were just they owned the venue or they worked there, and they just I think what they did was they just supervised. They weren't coordinating.
Yeah, seemed like it.
They were just making sure that nobody was tearing stuff up or getting too drunk and rowdy, and that's what I feel like. That's what it always felt like.
Actually, I will say, I'm actually going to give a shout out using a name to Mavericks Arts Center in Indianapolis. That was the only venue we have ever been to that their on-site staff was like on par. The entire day.
They had the earpieces and stuff? Yeah, that was awesome.
They were fantastic. Like they coordinated this couple, they didn't want to do a first look, but they wanted to do a first prayer. So they were like holding their hands around a corner. And so the people that were working there were like, they were the ones kind of wrangling us and telling us what time it was. And there were like 50 of them.
They felt like they were part of our team the whole day.
Yeah, it was great.
Felt like we worked with them, like we worked together.
And this place was, what was it, 3 stories, I think? And they had they had a rooftop balcony and like an outdoor patio area. And so it was a pretty big building. And they had probably 5 or 10 people that were working with the building on every level. So like everywhere we went at any point in time, they all had their little earpieces or walkie-talkies and stuff, and they were telling each other where we were. Yeah. And they were helping wrangle people. And so like the groomsmen were on the base floor, like the bottom level. and the bridal party was on 2nd or 3rd floor, I think, and then the guests were on the rooftop. So we were literally up and down stairs all day long at this venue, but it didn't feel like everything.
No.
That was the smoothest wedding we have ever done.
I have one memory of you about to go to the bride. Like, I gotta go find the bride, and then one of the staff stopped and you're like, oh, you need the bride? And then she just like held her earpiece and called her up, and she's like, she'll be up.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah, I know.
That was so
like,
cool.
Holy crap, this is awesome.
It felt like we just had access to the whole bridal party's ears at any time.
It was awesome.
I do remember that now. I totally forgot. Yeah, that was the only good coordinator.
Yeah.
Was there actually a single coordinator?
There was a manager that oversaw it.
Oh, oversaw the rest of the staff there.
But other than that, I mean, that's how
it should work, really.
Hands down, that was the best wedding we've ever done.
Yeah, I mean, they did have a complex venue.
They did.
With the multiple floors, so I don't know if that was necessary.
Well,
I mean,
we've done another venue that was multiple floors, and they did not have all that going on.
No, we did the venue twice, right?
Yes, we did.
Yes.
Worst venue we've ever
I
been
don't
to.
like it. Yeah, I don't want to call it out. But,
no.
But,
yeah.
Yeah, there's just so many little things like that over a while that just adds up, takes a toll on you. The money's okay. It's good. It's there.
Good, but I mean, if you compare the money to the amount of hours that you put into it and the mental and emotional drain,
no, you gotta love it.
Not worth it.
You know, you have to love it.
And for us, like, we loved it for a while. Like, for a while, we were in a good groove that it felt like it was second nature, you know, like it felt good for a while. And then it just eventually, it was like every couple of weddings that we were doing, there was one thing that would go wrong. And it's like, not even wrong. It's just, it kind of got to the point where it's like everything was going so well for such a good amount of time that we got into a groove. And whenever there was one little bump in the road, it just felt detrimental because you're like, oh, now we have to start this process all over. Or
yeah. And it kind of just got annoying to see the same problems over.
It did. It was common things, which was okay because like we could create processes around that. But the fact that we had to create processes for customer service felt awful.
And it always came back to our other work always felt like a collaboration, a partnership.
It did.
Because we problem solve with our clients.
Yeah.
And wedding couples, I don't know how to explain it. You feel like you do work for them.
Yeah.
But they're not exactly your boss.
No.
And it's like that awkward.
Yeah, it's a weird thing of like, this is their most important time in their life, you know, and it is a big responsibility for us to be able to capture that and to know exactly what it is that they want captured and make sure that they have something that they can share literally for generations at this point, which is cool to think about. Like, that's the impact that our work has.
I always think of that.
Yeah.
And that was always fulfilling when you're done, is thinking that will probably last forever.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I think about, like, it's so cool for me to look at, like, my grandparents' wedding photos or my great-grandparents, you know? Like, I have access to that stuff. And that's something that, like, I love and cherish. And to think that photos that I captured could be that way for generations, you know, 100 years down the road.
And that's
awesome.
Really cool, fulfilling. That was what kept me doing it at all, was just the thought of, can you imagine watching your grandparents' wedding film right now?
Right.
Like,
that'd be so cool.
It'd be, like, you could see
see the joy, the happiness. Like you could see family members that you haven't seen. Yeah, and
family members you haven't seen. Just how people dressed. Who knows how many generations down we're talking.
Yeah,
it'd be cool.
It's crazy.
How the world looked before the apocalypse. You know?
Yeah, before the end of the world. Yeah. But
back to negative.
Yeah, back to negative. Do we want to talk about sexual harassment? That's a fun one to get into.
Yes.
All right. So this only happened at one wedding. I will say, I was sketched out at every single wedding after this, but this was one wedding in particular. It was also the first wedding that we had ever captured where we didn't know anybody else. So that was like, we were really excited about that, but when this stuff started happening, it was scary.
Yeah. So,
do you want to start?
No, I was just gonna say we had no personal connection at all. Like these are all complete strangers. All together, we finally hit this level in our business where it's no longer, you know, extended family, cousin's friend or something. You know, it was not just a referral from anyone we directly knew.
Yeah. It was someone that found us and they liked our work and they wanted to hire us, even though they didn't know us. They knew nothing about us. Like, you know, it was cool. So this wedding, it was a really big bridal party. They had a lot of groomsmen and a lot of bridesmaids and a big family and, you know, all of that. And something that's very common with weddings is people will start drinking very early in the day. I'm talking like 8 a.m., 9 a.m. Like people are already pretty well gone at that point. And so this particular wedding, they had the groomsmen were at a different location than the bridesmaids, like completely different venue at this point. And so we were with the groomsmen initially during the day, and we were with them right when they were all kind of at that happy phase, you know? And so then we captured all of their like pre-ceremony stuff, and then we went to the actual wedding venue with the bride and bridesmaids and all of them and started capturing all of that. So there was probably a 4 or 5 hour span where we didn't see the groomsmen at all. And when the groomsmen made it to the venue, they were all pretty well gone.
Blasted, yeah.
Yeah, they were pretty intense. Which they were okay for the most part. They were at that like happy phase of they were just kind of reckless, you know. Didn't really affect us. Like they were just kind of being silly and whatever, which made for some fun photos. Say that. But at the end of the night, after the ceremony, after we did all of our photos, people were dancing and, you know, people started to get crazy. And there was, it actually happened twice. There was with 2 different people, both groomsmen. One of them came up and like, I was taking a photo of these 2 guests that were attending. And one of these groomsmen came up and like put his arm around me and held me like really close to him. And it was weird because at first he was like kind of laughing. He was like rocking and he was singing to whatever song was playing or whatever. And Austin was actually standing by me when this happened. And
I wasn't there the first time.
Yeah, no, because it was the second time that you were at the back, so you weren't even there at all. So this first time, like you weren't right next to me, but you saw it, you know, like you saw what was happening. And so the 2 ladies that I was taking a photo of, they kind of looked like they could see that I was uncomfortable, but I was just kind of like smiling.
I don't know if he was harassing them before he came over to you.
Yeah, I don't know.
Who knows what he was doing?
And it was like it wasn't like harassment, you know, but it made me uncomfortable.
Well,
like
you shouldn't go up and put your arm around people like that. First of all, we're working. Yeah. Second, it's just you don't know them at all. I mean, you didn't even talk to that guy the whole day.
No, I didn't even know who he was. No. Yeah. And so he had his arm around me and like that wasn't a huge deal. I played it off as like, you're drunk, whatever, like just go away. Like just leave me alone. And he did. Like he ended up leaving and like didn't see him the rest of the night.
Well, I was worried he was gonna come back.
Yeah.
And that's where it put me in an awkward position because it's like, well, I don't know how to explain. If I gotta put hands on him or push him off or something, you know, I don't know how that could have played out.
And how's that gonna look to everyone else when we're working there?
And I don't know what that does to the business either.
Exactly.
You know, like there's boundaries there and you run into that and people start drinking. Yeah. And there's all kinds of that's the first time we ever ran into that. And to be honest, I wonder just how many other photographers doing this by themselves.
Oh, I know.
Run into that.
Because, I mean, before that, we were talking about, like, wow, Austin and I could, like, separate. We could do 2 weddings in one day. And, like, we could be, like, twice as profitable and still provide the same product, you know? But after that, no, definitely not. So that was the first thing that happened at this particular wedding. So then, I don't know, it was probably another 30 minutes to an hour after that. Austin you had like walked away and you were at our camera bags, which was kind of in the same room, but it was like behind this like wall divider area.
They had the room divided there. Yeah. I was remembering this backwards.
And so, and just for more context, the groomsmen got like really buddy with you that day. Like they thought Austin was so funny and like, you know, every time they would see you, they go, Austin, my man.
They were just drunk.
Yeah. And so like they were all playing off of like, you know, you're the guy. Like
they were fine.
Yeah. And so this time I was taking photos of guests on the dance floor. Like people were, you know, dancing, they were doing their own thing. And this was a crowded dance floor too. Like there's probably 100 people on this dance floor. And so I was on kind of like the outer edge of it, taking like a wide photo of the whole dance floor. And this guy comes up and he like grinds me basically. Like he comes up behind me and starts like doing that. And I'm taking a photo. And so I like immediately step forward because like at first I thought someone just like bumped into me. Like he was behind me. I couldn't see. And so I like stepped forward and I kind of like, you know, glanced back real quick and I didn't see anyone. So he must have been like kind of on the other side of me. And so I just kept doing what I was doing. Because again, I thought someone just like bumped up on me, you know? And so I like stepped forward and kept taking photos. And then he came back and he put his hands like on my waist. And it was the weirdest thing. And so I turned around and like, you were nowhere. Like I immediately was like, where's Austin?
No,
like,
I didn't see that.
I freaked out. And so I turned around and I told the guy to stop. And I told him to move, to leave me alone, told him to stop. And I don't remember exactly what I said, but I was stern and like, no, like this can't happen, you know? And he like kept insisting, like, no, this is fine. He was like, oh, I'm just playing, we're just dancing, like, I'm just, you know, it's just funny.
Because it's fine if he says it's fine, but
yeah,
not,
exactly.
Not if you don't.
No, but not if I'm not okay with it. No, that doesn't, yeah. And so, then he gets in front of me and like bends over, like the weirdest thing. He bends over and, I told him to stop and to leave me alone. And I started to walk away and he like put his hand on my waist a second time and he insisted. And I said, Austin better not see you do this, you know? And the guy was like, oh, he won't care. He was like, I'm just playing, you know? And then at that point I was like, I literally pushed away from him and like pushed through the crowd and went to find you. And I was like, we got to get out of here. Like I can't, like we're done.
We were wrapping the day up.
Yeah, you know. I mean, thankfully we were already at the point where like we had already captured. Enough. Yeah, we had already captured the whole day. But like I was so uncomfortable with that. And so that whole ride home, we were just talking about like, okay, I guess from now on, like we have to have a sexual harassment clause.
Well, we put that in the contract because if that ever happened early on in the day,
yeah, we're out.
Yeah,
like,
we're not playing that.
It creates a liability for us. Like this is our workplace, and that is an unsafe environment for us to be in. You know. Yeah.
And well, the thing was too is that and what our concern was, it's not the bride and groom were not to blame.
No.
And that's where it's like, if we had left, say it happened early in the day, it's not their fault. So who it gets real sketchy on like who's in the right, who's in the wrong. How should this play out? Who gets what? Who pays what? You know
exactly. Yeah.
And that's just one of many things that just are there variables. They're unpredictable variables.
Yeah. That was the most extreme thing that we were like, okay, we're done. Like this is the last time. Like this is not, you know, it's not worth risking whatever could potentially happen. You know. So aside from that, what else do we have? Mixing family and business, friends and business. We've learned the hard way is not always a good idea. We won't get into too many details there, but we just found that there were some, I don't know, just some difficult scenarios that we ended up in the middle of, in those decisions. So just a lot of variables.
We touched on the styles, didn't we? Where somebody.
So we didn't go into detail on what happened with this one particular instance, but so basically
this one's pretty stupid, so we have to.
Yeah, man, this one. So, man, this wedding styles. So this particular wedding was in the summer, and the couple knew what they were getting. We showed them ahead of time, like what our spring summer styles look like. Like we, you know, reviewed that with them. They were okay with it. When we delivered their wedding, they were really happy with it. And the day of their wedding was like, it was very, very bright, like bright blue skies. It was very sunny, literally the hottest day of the year. I will never forget that.
It was.
It was awful. It rained in the morning, so it was like muggy. And then it was like bright blue skies. There were not a single cloud in the sky, bright blue. The bridesmaids' dresses and the groomsmen suits were all blue. So naturally, you're going to have blue undertones in your skin when we take photos, you know? That's just naturally what it is.
It's bounced light off of them.
Yep.
I mean,
plus mixed with, this was the middle of the summer, so you have vibrant greens. So you had the green grass, the green leaves, and all of these different things going into effect with the sun.
Well, that's an example people may see too, is if you're ever around vibrant green grass, or even if you're under a tree or near a tree, it's reflecting light, you'll see green tones in your skin.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll see it on your phone if you take your phone.
Yeah.
That's why phones have white balance correction, where you have the green and purple tint too. It's trying to compensate for that stuff.
Yeah. So this particular wedding was at a barn venue. And when we were doing the bridal party photos or the wedding party photos, we staged them in front of the barn because it was a red barn. So you could have that good contrast between their skin tones with the bounce light, and the red barn contrasted the blue dresses, the green grass, you know. It made for a good composition, and it made the skin better. It doesn't fix the blue undertones or the green bounce light, but better, you know. So we were trying to work with what we were given in that case, you know. And there were times that there were trees that covered the area, so we did shoot a lot under the trees and the shadowed areas, so we didn't have the harsh light, and you know, again, trying to make what we could work well. So this particular couple, I'll never forget, they praised us. Like they told us so much that they loved our photos and they were so happy with it, and they got a video too, and they said that they you know, they loved the video. Like they absolutely loved everything. We were
working off each other too. I mentioned this earlier, where we were trying to make your photo styles look like my video and my video style look like your photo. We're trying to match a little bit there.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I just want to say that the video, I thought we matched pretty well to your photos for this.
We did, yeah. And so, and we even had like their parents. I remember, and I think a sister, or sibling, or someone reached out and like told us how much they loved all the stuff that we gave to them from their wedding. And so we thought, okay, awesome. Like, you know, this day went really smoothly. Like, it was a fun wedding. Like, you know, despite it being literally the hottest day of the year in the middle of the summer in Indiana. And man,
I had overheating camera issues that day too.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really bad. Thankfully they had a snow cone truck at their wedding, which was cool.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. But anyway, so literally months later, in the fall, we were doing fall weddings. And so they started to see us post fall wedding albums on Facebook, on social media, and our website, and all of that. And sure enough, this couple reached out, this summer couple reached out and asked why their photos don't look like the ones that we were posting in the fall.
Months later, that's what I don't understand too.
It was like 6 months later.
And I do think we even upgraded our
We did. We upgraded a camera in there too.
Yeah. So, I mean, that happens.
Yeah. And so we had to explain like all these variables to them. And like, I remember, because they emailed us. And so I remember trying to set up like a call or a meeting or something with them. Cause like it's tricky to explain in email, like all the variables that make your photos what they are, you know?
Different. Yeah.
Yeah. And they argued, and they insisted that they weren't happy with what we delivered. And then they told us that they never liked any of them, and they hated their entire album. And
after they said they liked it.
Yeah.
Months prior.
Yeah. And then they, so originally they asked us why their photos don't look like the fall photos, you know? So that was number one. Tried to get a meeting with them. They didn't want to meet with us. And then after that, they insisted that they tried to print the photos, and they were coming out really blue, is what they said. I asked if they could send us a photo of their printed photo so I could see like what was going on, and they wouldn't do that. And so then I explained, well, you know, a lot of variables could go into that too. It could be the digital file that I provided to you, you know. So I was trying to explain like metadata and what goes into that. But then I explained like it could also be the printer that you're going with. Like, did you go to CVS or Walgreens or Walmart or something, or did you order from like Impix or, you know, like a professional printer? They insisted that they ordered from a professional printer, and it had to have been the photos that we delivered to them and all this. So I re-edited their newlywed portraits, not the entire wedding, just like, it was like 50 images that I re-edited for them.
This is months later. And
like 6 months later.
Here we are putting time into a wedding that's already done.
Yeah.
Just to keep the customer happy.
And during our busiest season, like this put other weddings off track because I was trying to backtrack and help them.
This was really our point where we were really being pushed when we were just done.
Yeah. And so I re-edited like a small amount of photos for them, and they insisted that no, they didn't like them, and what they wanted was all of the greens in their photos to be converted to orange to look like the fall, which is a lot of work. A lot of work. And mind you, we delivered like 2,000 photos to them, and they wanted every single one to have their entire album, which is like probably 50 hours of work. Like, that's a lot, you know?
Yeah, it was 50 hours we didn't have at the time.
Yeah, because we would have had to have restarted the entire project. Like, I couldn't have just reused what I already gave them.
at the time, if we would have gotten another wedding booked, we wouldn't be able to take it because we're too busy already. And
exactly.
we got past work we've already done coming back.
Yeah. And so we explained to them that, like, we can do that. Like, let me make one example for you to see if you like it before I commit to this, you know? And they insisted that they didn't want a sample. And if we were going to do the work, they wanted the entire thing done. It's just like, oh my gosh. Okay. So I told them, like, well, we're backed up through, at that point, it was like March, I think, with all of the weddings and like the editing that we had to do in there. And so I had to explain to them that, like, if you want this done, for one, you need to pay for it, because at this point we're redoing your entire wedding. And we gave them a discount. Like, we told them what we would typically charge and the discount that we would offer to them. And I told them that,
well, you weren't even charging for the tweaks you did.
No, I didn't. I just gave that to them just to see if it would, if it would help, you know? And so then they asked, well, can we just re-edit like their bridal, or no, they had like a few family photos and a couple of like the whole wedding party that they just wanted like samples of. It's just like, oh, okay, so we'll do that. So at this point, I had already redone all their newlywed photos and a few more photos for them. And then they asked if they wanted us to do the entire wedding. And so I had to explain to them that, like, for one, we need to charge. And again, we gave them a discount on this. And I told them that, like, we're booked through March at this point. So, like, the earliest that we could possibly do this for you was like April, which is coming up on like a whole year after their wedding at that point, you know? And then they ghosted us, never replied, and I literally never heard back from them since.
I don't know. And we liked this couple all the way through.
Yeah, they were great.
Awesome
like
people.
We talked to them for like 2 years of meetings and consultation. We did their engagement photos. Like,
their family was
everything.
Awesome. Everything was great about them.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is it's just curveballs.
Yeah.
And also, that's another thing that I just don't like about doing weddings. And I'm not saying everyone that works in weddings feels this way, but there is this lack of respect for the business, and it's just, you're just a person with a camera. You're a guy who knows a guy person, you know? Oh, I know a guy who does this. I know a person who does this. I know a girl who does this, whatever. But it's like, it's always that, and it's not like, that's what I like about, I don't know. Most people name their companies after their name. You know, it's so-and-so photography. And it's because it's so personal, small scale person. And we've always had a bigger mindset of this, everything we do just being bigger than us. It's not about us, not what we do. It's what can we create. Yeah. And that's why we needed memories too, because we thought maybe we dabbled with the idea of like growing a team, a wedding team, and doing that. We even talked about managing the team. Yeah. So that's a good segue into another fun little like thing that we did not like about this industry is conceited photographers and other people that we had to work with. So there was this, we have two stories. I don't know where to start with these. So there was one that we were traveling. We were doing only video at this one, and there was a team of 2 photographers that were working at this wedding, and which it was like okay, but at this point, like wedding films were very new at this point. Yeah, and so I think these photographers they had no experience working with wedding filmmakers. I highly doubt they'd ever worked with any video. They were very confused and like they acted like we were competition. Yeah. And it was weird, like weird. And it was just this weird like tension between us. And they knew like we traveled across the country for this wedding and they knew that. And I don't know, it just felt so strange. They were very, and I don't know usually I would reach out if I was doing video photographer and try to get the photographer's number, reach out and say hi before the wedding and just, you know, say hello, introduce yourself. I think we did do that and they didn't. I can't remember we did that for this. I'm pretty sure we did because and they just never replied. They seemed like they had no idea we were even going to be there when we got there. Yeah. Yeah. But also, I mean, knowing the bride from that wedding, there's no way that they didn't tell them. I wouldn't think so. No. This is a very hyper organized. Yeah. Very organized bride. But this particular duo at one point after the ceremony, they were doing newlywed photos. And they left the venue with the bride and groom without telling us. And we were supposed to be with them. Well, I want to mention, too, they had talked about doing this. And we had overheard them talking about taking them off to this area. And we're like, oh, let us know when you want to do that. We'll go. You know, we want to capture some footage there. And they were like, okay. So like we had already talked about doing that together.
Yeah.
And it was their idea, and we were willing to work around that. Just let us know when, is all we said.
And the way that we had found out that they left was we were looking
for the couple.
Yeah, we were looking for them, and we asked, I think it was the DJ, we asked, and they were like, oh, they had like a schedule, and they're like, they're supposed to be like at this place with the photographers, you know, and we were like, we don't see them.
They never.
And sure enough, we saw a like SUV leaving the venue. And we were like, what the heck?
I remember because we were running to the car and I wanted my gimbal. I think I didn't get to get my gimbal.
No.
So I was like, oh, we got to chase the couple down to go capture this.
And at this point too, this venue was so bad. It was this long, like, dirt. It was a swamp is what it was. It was a swamp.
And they broke a bunch of, it was like, it wasn't gravel.
It was
gravel
concrete.
Parts.
It was concrete.
It was like scrap brick and stone.
Yeah.
It was like broken up brick and I don't know what you call that, but it was like.
It was chunks.
Rough.
Like,
rough. And we had a small little Saturn.
Little coupe.
Little coupe.
Yeah.
I don't know how we fit.
It was low to the ground too. And so we couldn't make it. Like we could not. The road that, because they had like a Jeep or so they had an SUV that was like made for this, you know, and we had this little coupe that was low to the ground, so we had to like drive off the road and hope that we didn't get like stuck in the mud.
I remember hearing the brick hit the axle. And it sounded awful. I was really thinking we were tearing the car up going through that, but.
And sure enough, like we ended up catching up to them because they stopped like it was probably a mile down the road. Like it was a decent way, but we ended up finding them.
It was down around a corner too.
Yeah, we ended up finding them, and we were able to get a few shots, but like they were done by the time that we pulled up.
Yeah, and it was just awkward.
Yeah, it was so weird.
It was like, and and during that, it felt like they were upset. They
gave us dirty looks. Like it looked like they were like.
It felt like they were upset. We chased them down, and I don't know.
It was so weird. Yeah.
I don't know what that was about, but yeah.
So the other one too, there's a photographer here in Central Indiana that they've formed this like huge, what's the word, like conglomerate
of photographers.
Yeah, they've formed this big network, and the company is named after their name, which is fine. But we were filming a wedding. It was a friend of ours that we knew, and we were filming a wedding. And so we get there, and this photographer has like, they wouldn't talk to us before the wedding, first of all. And so when we get there, they tell us like, oh yeah, you know, we're so good to work with, and like we've worked with so many video teams before. But then they started complaining about the amount of gear that video teams have with them, which was like kind of weird.
And I hadn't even like unloaded yet. She hadn't seen my stuff, right?
Yeah.
This is early on in the day.
Yeah, this is really early.
Why? So like. I know you're saying this and you haven't seen my stuff yet.
And she was like immediately bad-mouthing like other video teams that she's worked with, and it was just weird. But then she was like, oh, I'm so easy to work with, and like we're gonna have such a great day together. And
definitely like an intimidation. It was a very, very roundabout way of stay out of my way.
Yeah, basically.
That's what it was.
But like she did it in such a like nice, like it felt like, yeah, we're gonna be best friends, and I'm gonna stab you in the back today.
Well,
like,
that's what it was. Yeah, we'll be best friends, but don't get my way.
Yeah, and so we exchanged phone numbers at that point because we were at a hotel with the bride where she was getting ready, and the groom was on site at the venue, like down the road, or you know, it was in a city, so it was similar area but like different building. And so we exchanged phone numbers at this point, and this photographer had a second shooter with them too. And this second shooter looked scared. Like they looked worried the whole day. Like they looked like they were doing something wrong all day. And I felt like I needed to help them. Like I didn't, but like I legitimately felt like, are you okay? Like sign at me. Like, do you need to be saved right now?
She was cool.
She was, yeah. The second shooter was totally fine. But so during the wedding day, we had never shot at this venue before. And so when we get there, the parking lot has like a gate code, and we didn't know that. And like the bride and groom didn't tell us this. Like we, you know, probably something we should have asked, but like just didn't.
Well, I think that was an oversight on their end.
It was, yeah, but like, you know,
it happens.
Whatever. Yeah, it happens. Whatever, not a big deal. And so at this point, I already had the photographer's phone number, like personal phone number, and she literally told us like, yeah, call me, text me, like if you need anything. You know, wedding days are super crazy. Like it's important that we're on the same page and all this stuff. You know. And so I can see her. We can see her in the parking lot on the other side of this gate. Like she got through without the code, like with the code or whatever. We can visibly see her, you know. And so I call her, nothing. I text her, nothing. Tried calling her again, nothing. And at this point, I think there was like another car behind us or something. Like, yeah. And there was like, nope, we couldn't turn around. Like, we were stuck here, you know? And so she was ignoring me. And so we got out of the car and like yelled at her, basically. And so then that's whenever she texted us the gate code at that point. And so then we pull up and like we park kind of next to her at that point, you know, and we start unloading our stuff. And she just like beelined inside the venue, like didn't even acknowledge us after any of that or anything, like just like beeline inside. So you're like, okay, kind of weird, you know, but at the same time, you know, who knows? Maybe she's just stressed or like we are a little bit behind schedules. So like, who knows, you know, whatever.
We gave her the benefit of the doubt the whole day. And at the end of the day, I was like, no, she's crappy.
Yeah. She's awful.
And we've heard from other video teams that we know that worked with her who also had the same complaints and just didn't and had more stories even worse than ours.
Yeah.
I really wish we could drop her name, but we're gonna keep it classy.
Yeah. So that's not the end of the story though. So
I know.
After the wedding. So there was more that happened during the wedding day, which whatever. Oh, do you want to talk about her cue for you to come in?
Oh my yes. It was the what was it? It was the the first dance? The first dance. We coordinate that. I usually fly a gimbal during the first dance to get a couple sweeping shots for the video. So there's always some cool shots. But I always work with the photographer on that because it's like I'm gonna go in an orbit. So I let them know when I'm gonna go in and do that and grab a couple shots. I was like, just let me know, when I can come in. I just need to go in maybe once or twice to get up close because I like to be real close and personal in those shots. And she said, oh yeah, I'll give you a cue and to come in and do that after I get my photos, which it's fine. But it was like, she said, after, like prioritizing her, there was no option of like, should I go first? Should she go first? It was like, I'm going first. I'll let you know when you can. I was like, okay.
And as a photographer, first dance photos, like you can get in and out in like 10 seconds and you got all you need.
Well, she had two people too on it, which this is one thing I didn't understand. And I was sitting there waiting for my cue to go and she kept taking photos. And I'm just sitting here waiting for this photographer to tell me to do my job. And she never, ever gave me a cue. And I ended up just going in and cutting in front of her because I had to get something.
Yeah.
Because where we were, it was so, the composition sucked from where I was. I needed to move my camera in some way because she demanded like this whole wide area where I remember I was asking to put a tripod up.
Yeah.
I couldn't put a tripod anywhere. She didn't want a tripod anywhere in the shot. So I worked with her on that.
This was a huge dance floor.
Yeah.
Huge. And they had a second balcony where all the guests were looking down on it. So there was no one even
She had the photographer on the top balcony, her second shooter, and then she was on the floor up close with them. But I wasn't allowed to have a tripod anywhere on the floor around in anywhere. And even the one place I could put it was she was in the shot the whole time. Yeah. And I couldn't, and that's why I wasn't planning on using the shot. I wanted my gimbal shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was so inconsiderate at all. And it's like, she's experienced this. I can understand someone being nervous, but she is experienced and runs a business and does this.
Yeah. So then after the wedding, another thing during the wedding, the bride and groom did a first look and we write blogs, like actual love story blogs about the couples. When we share their weddings. And with this, like, I take notes during the wedding day of, like cute things that they say or like what guests are saying or doing, or like, we'll ask people like, what's your favorite part of the day, and include all this stuff in our blog for them. And so I asked her, and that's a pretty common thing. Like we had our own special twist on it, but like wedding blogs are a common thing that a lot of people do. And so during the first look, the bride or the groom said something really sweet about the bride. I don't remember what it was, but it was just this really sweet quote that the groom said. And so I had taken note of it. And the photographer, she was there, but like she was, first of all, I'm pretty sure if I remember right, I think she interrupted him like while he was saying like this like sweet moment with the bride and groom, I could be remembering that wrong, but I think that's what happened. So she was like coordinating them, like where to stand and what to do and, all of this. But after that, I asked her like, yeah, do you have a wedding blog? And I said, if so, like the groom just said this, like, this is really sweet thing. Like, we're going to include it in ours. Like, feel free to use the quote, whatever. And she was like, oh, okay. And literally just like disregarded it. She's like, okay, whatever. Well, when the wedding blog came out after the wedding, we saw, first of all, she doesn't write about the couples at all. She doesn't get to know them. She doesn't do a love story, nothing. The blog is literally her sneak peeks And then she tags all of the vendors that were included, and that's it. Which the fact that she tags vendors is good, but she didn't tag us. And it said video team and left it blank.
And then you texted her.
Yeah, and because I still had her phone number. So I texted her and I was like, hey, this is Caitlin from Memories by Absorb. Like, we were at this wedding with you on this date. We saw your sneak peeks. They look great, but we noticed that, like, you tagged all the other vendors except for us. And she was like, oh, sorry, I just didn't have your information. It was like, you have my phone number, and if you didn't have the information, you could ask the bride and groom. Like, she knew that we were friends with them, I'm
sure she didn't even attempt looking us up.
Oh, absolutely not. No. And she was like, yeah, sure, we'll add it in, So I was like, okay. Gave her like a week, never added it in. Checked back like a month later. Never added it. Never, ever. Goodness.
And I don't know how that's not personal.
No.
With that.
And so this photographer, they have this huge company where she is the best. You pay like $10,000 starting to have her at your wedding, like the photographer. You pay that much to have her at your wedding. Or you can pay, I think it was like $8,000 or $6,000, something like that, to have a shooter that is training under her at your wedding, but it's not her. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't understand,
I don't know. There could be a whole reality show on the wedding industry.
There should be.
I'm sure there probably is. Well, I don't know. No, there's. If not, someone needs to follow a photographer around and do like a reality show.
Honestly, let's do it.
No, I'm out of weddings. I want to be far away from those.
Goodness. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, aside from that, a lot of our weddings, like we've had issues on the wedding day when like there's construction on the way to the venue or something. Like the last wedding that we did, the main road that led to the venue was shut down. There was a crane in the middle of the road, and we didn't know until we got there. And this is like kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And so we get there, and there's this crane. We have no cell reception.
It's like we could see the driveway.
Yeah, we could see the sign.
But there was nowhere to drive around, even off road around.
No, because there was like a river.
They had the road taken apart. Yeah, and it was just a mess. But it sucked because you see the road.
Yeah,
it was a half-hour detour around.
Yeah, it was, and we had to drive. It was a a gravel road through a cornfield. Yeah, to get there.
And I remember I was upset because I just waxed the car.
Yeah. And that threw our whole day off by like an hour at that point. And so because of that, like we told them, like we'll compensate, we'll add, another hour at the end of the day. But this particular wedding, they wanted us to be there longer at the end of the day. So we only had like, I think an hour or two before the ceremony anyway. Yeah. So like they didn't get as many like pre-ceremony photos as what they should have.
What we used to do was we didn't do that till later, but a lot of people do it and it's smart just to cut, you're only there for this many hours. Yeah. We used to say the whole day, but that was mainly to cover our butts to make sure we didn't miss anything. Yeah. But yeah.
One of the other things, actually the first thing that went wrong at a wedding, take that back. The second thing that went wrong at a wedding. It was a distant friend, someone that like we weren't super close to, but one of the first few weddings that we had done. The first bad review we ever got was from...
Oh, and that's... yeah, go ahead.
So the first bad review that we ever got on a wedding was not from a couple or the parents of the bride and groom or anyone in the wedding party. It was a random person that attended a wedding because a photo of their grandson, who was a ring bearer, was not posted in the sneak peeks. We got the photo. Yeah. Wasn't posted in the sneak peeks, and they left us a bad review online.
Well, and we talked about, too, like, it was a specific time they wanted the photo, right? Yep. It was a certain moment they wanted it. Yep. But we had talked to the couple because they were doing... She was the first look with her dad. Yep. The same time that this kid was doing this one thing. Yeah. And we could not be at two places at once. So we asked her, like, which do you want to prioritize? The bride. And she told us her first look. Yeah. So we prioritized that.
So their first look, this is not typical. This was the only time that we did this.
Never done that.
The first look with the dad happened while the bridal party was walking down the aisle. So like while they were doing their entrances, they were all walking down the aisle. So we prioritized getting the photos of the bridal party in the aisle when they were leaving. I think it's called the reception. Yeah. We prioritized that.
And all this was coordinated and planned with the bride.
Yep. And they knew that. They approved it. That's what they wanted. Because obviously I would want first look photos with my dad instead of, a photo of a ring bearer too. But So the bride and groom knew that and they approved that. And when we got this review from this person, we didn't recognize the name. Like we didn't know who it was. We had no idea what wedding this was. Like we had no clue. And so, you know, immediately, and it was a bad review too. Like it was really crappy. Like it wasn't just like, you know, they're not good at their job, you know.
It was like, you know,
it was really bad
to do one thing and they can't even capture one important moment.
Yeah.
They were so vague with the moment. They made it sound like we missed the whole ceremony.
Yeah. It was really bad.
Yeah.
And they were like such a special day for the family and they didn't capture.
And
like,
that hurts you so much in that industry.
Yeah, it does. Really
so much
bad.
in the industry.
And we were new too. Like that was I think our third or fourth wedding.
Yeah, so like what our ratio of bad review to good reviews? Well, no one leaves reviews usually.
Yeah, people usually don't leave good reviews.
That's the hard thing. Yeah. And you have to ask for good reviews, but you don't have to ask for bad reviews.
Exactly.
But
so this review, when they had posted it, immediately we were freaking out. Like, what happened? Like, what wedding was this from? Like, who? We thought that they posted on the wrong page, you know? And so we replied like publicly, because this was on Facebook. We replied publicly to them and asked, you know, like, oh, I'm so sorry. What happened? Like, we don't recognize your name. Is it possible that you left this on the wrong page? And they were like, nope, you're the ones that were there. You ruined our day. Like, we don't have these memories now. And like immediately hostile and very crappy. Yeah. Like horrible stuff.
Which is surprising that we didn't run into that more.
Yeah. And so then they told us publicly what wedding they attended. We were able to narrow that down publicly on Facebook for all these people to see. That they were an attendee at a wedding. And so immediately, like, we called, or I think I texted the bride or something. Because again, they were like, we were friends, not like close friends, but like, you know, close enough to text them, you know? So we texted them, like, hey, this person left this review, like, I'm so sorry, like, I didn't realize that that's something that you wanted prioritized, you know, like, I immediately took it as, like, the bride had talked to someone.
The people that hired us to do what they wanted.
Exactly. And the bride was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, I had no idea that they did this to you. And she was like, I assure you, like, we are so happy with everything that you've done. And like, they ended up leaving us a good review to counter it. And the guests took down their review too. But they ended up sending us, the guests sent us a private message and told us how they were irate. I remember that word. They were irate that we ended up going to the bride and bothering them over this too. Like, that was our first bad experience.
Also, the bride made a comment, something like, it's not my kid. She was like, it's not even my kid. You know, it was like, she really didn't care to have the.
No, like the bride did not care.
It was a guest hoping to get a photo they didn't pay for.
Yeah, they just wanted a professional photo of their grandson, which whatever, you know.
And they're like, there. The photos are there.
Yeah.
They're just not the right ones.
Like, it just wasn't posted publicly. Like, the bride had the photo that they were looking for.
Oh, yeah.
It just wasn't posted on Facebook.
Just download it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, too, is like how many guests can just say anything about you when they're not even the ones that hired you to do what you wanted to do.
Exactly.
And then they don't know what you discussed with the couple before the day. Like the sacrifices they want, you know, where they want captured and what they want captured when. Yeah. And what they have to lose to do that sometimes.
And then we've also ran into the issue of random people, like, it's not always random people, but sometimes we have had the issue of someone will come up to us and be like, hey, the bride asked if you could get this photo or something.
Yeah.
And we will do that and sacrifice something else. And then the bride asked where the other photo was.
They're doing it without even talking to the bride.
Exactly.
Yeah. They're going behind the bride's back and swapping up.
So something that we ended up doing, because we ran into these similar issues quite a bit. We also ran into, we've never, besides the one that wanted us to change the styles, we have never had a bad bride or groom ever.
No.
They've all been very understanding. Like, even when things don't go right.
No, I don't think we ever ran into a bridezilla, the stereotype.
Never. No.
Cool.
But the parents.
It's always the parents.
Awful.
Uh-huh.
Always. And not every single time, but a lot of the times, man, it's bad. It's so bad.
I don't know. That's because maybe majority of the time, not everyone, they're probably the ones paying for it all.
Well, that's what we ended up finding out, because we had a lot of parents that would throw that up.
Yeah.
And they would get mad at us for not capturing something that they wanted, even though
it's not what the bride wanted.
Exactly. And then they would throw it up that they're the ones paying for it and all this. So in our contracts, we added what we called a third-party clause. And if anyone else besides the bride and groom was paying for the wedding, this clause basically stated that ultimately that is a gift, and it is still the bride and groom that is our client, and we are servicing them, you know.
Because the product it's bought before they're given to them, and it's not being altered later.
Yeah. We also ended up having to go to the point where we would not accept payments from anyone else. So if like, you know, a friend or, you know, a grandparent, whoever wanted to contribute to the fund for the bride and groom, they had to pay the bride and groom. Like they didn't have access to the invoice because that became a problem sometimes too.
Yeah. And that took us how many years to get to that point to even start learning this, to finally be operating on a professional, streamlined level. Took a long time.
It did.
And then you always run into something new. And it's like, oh crap, now we got to adjust this contract. We got to do this differently. We got to come up with a new way to protect ourselves in the business. And it's so.
Well, that's what it felt like. Like it felt like we were always on the defense.
Yeah.
But the customer's always right.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah. That's just what it felt like.
The customers believe they're always right because it's where they say everywhere else. But it's like, we're not Walmart. Anyways, we need to wrap this up here. It's a long one, so.
It is very long.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot still we're not talking about. But
that's
the gist of it. And if anyone ever wondered if you watched this far or listened to this far, if curious of why we quit doing weddings, it's mainly because it wasn't our main source of income, and it just wasn't worth it compared to the other side of things we were doing at all. It was by a long shot. It
was too much of a time and a mental investment, an emotional investment that. When we have these dreams and these aspirations of running a bigger creative business for other businesses, that yes, this was a stepping stone, and yes, we learned a lot doing weddings, but ultimately it wasn't for us. You know?
Nope. And I'm happy to pass all of our work to other people who find fulfillment and joy in doing this.
Yes, because it is for some people. You know,
it is. I mean, we felt that at one point, but yeah, not anymore.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. We're gonna wrap this up now. That's it in this episode of us complaining the whole time. Thanks for listening to that. We'll talk to you guys later.